return to Rhett's family ranch. Has a family ranch. Ride the cowboy, wear the hat. No. Hey besties, and welcome back to my channel. I have been in the biggest small town and sports romance era of my life recently. There is just something so like comforting and cozy and honestly entertaining about a romance set in a small town. I love the gossip and the drama, and the setting usually lends itself to like cowboys and vineyards and farms, all of which I absolutely love reading about. And so I figured I could take you through some of my all-time favorite small town romances. We are kicking this video off with potentially my second favorite small town romance ever. This is Ignite by Melanie Harlow. Ignite follows Dex and his two young daughters who have just moved in next door to Winnie. Winnie is a super sunshiny, upbeat, charismatic girl who works at her parents' vineyard. And let me just mention that Dex is a firefighter because that does come into the plot a little bit later on. After a typical neighborly introduction and the seed of a crush planted in Winnie's mind, she finds herself accidentally setting off her condo's fire alarm while in the shower. And in rushes Dex, smacking straight into a horrified and very much naked Winnie. I promise you it is not as cringe as it sounds. There is an adequate amount of mortification and remorse on both parties. Now Dex obviously skedaddles out of there pretty quickly because he is a respectable man. And then fast forwarding a little, the two of them find themselves outside on their back patios at the same time. Naturally there's some conversation, there's some tension, there's a lot of tension actually, and there may or may not be some heavy petting and a little bit of kissing. However, unfortunately for the two of them, Winnie has sworn off of men for the remainder of the year, and Dex is just like not mentally ready to get in a relationship. Now, how do they get around this predicament, I hear you asking? Friends with benefits. All in all, Ignite seriously delivers on the banter front. I genuinely laughed out loud a couple of times while reading this book. The smut in this is phenomenal, and the tension like still remains basically throughout the entire book between the two of them, which I love. And the characters in Ignite are also so lovable. I really did enjoy them, especially Dex's little girls. They're just so cute. They were actually written according to their age because there's nothing worse than in a book when a kid is meant to be like 6 years old but they talk like they're 20. But the girls are just the sweetest, and they really adore Winnie as well, so you best believe there is a lot of pressure on their part, on their dad, to make something happen. Next up is the second book in the spin-off series of the Cloverleaf Farm series. This is Taste, again by Melanie Harlow. This one can be read as a standalone, so it is not necessary to read Ignite beforehand. Ellie is Winnie from the first book's best friend, and she's determined to get her parents' vineyard, Abelard, on the map. Reaching out to magazines, trying to land herself in top 100s lists, and really just trying to make something of her restaurant. In the meantime, in comes Gianni, who is a big-time chef with a multitude of TV shows and awards under his belt. His and Ellie's parents go way back, and so it's only natural that Gianni will fill in as the head chef at Abelard for his 6 months off. Now, remember how I said Ellie is determined to land Abelard on the map? Well, she has been given the opportunity to do just that, both curating and delivering a very fancy wine list at the dinner party of one of America's most elite restaurateurs. Only thing is, there's a massive snowstorm incoming, and Gianni couldn't possibly let Ellie go it alone. Unfortunately for Ellie, Gianni does really steal the show at the dinner party, though not by his own accord. But it does mean we get some stupendous tension, and emotions are running very high, which honestly just creates the perfect storm, pardon my pun, for the two of them to get stranded in a roadside motel in a blizzard. The tension, the forced proximity, the smart. It was good. I was seriously never bored while reading this book. Despite the better half of it taking place in a hotel, there was never a dull moment. I wholeheartedly loved it, and if you're looking for a really good second chance, forced proximity, swoon-worthy read, I'd really recommend. Next up, I'm going to be recommending you the first two books in another series, and the first one that I have for you is Indigo Ridge by Daphne Perry. This one follows Winslow, Quincy's new chief of police, and she's been brought in to solve a murder mystery which conveniently takes place on Griffin Eden's ranch. Right from the get-go, Griffin has a chip on his shoulder and he's very reluctant to help out police. The main reason being, Griffin and Winslow hooked up on her first night in town while Griffin has a strictly no locals policy. Obviously, that whole debacle leads to some perfectly curated tension and some very awkward moments between the two. I just loved Indigo Ridge so much, and if you're looking for an easy, quick read with lovable characters and a light mystery aspect, I'd really recommend it. it. And that leads us right into the next book. This is the second book of the Eden series, Juniper Hill. This one can be read as standalone as these books are all just interconnected. Juniper Hill follows our heroine and single mum Memphis. Memphis is essentially on the run from her old life with her little baby boy Drake, and he is definitely making things a little hard. But Memphis is determined and she actually lands a job at the Eloise Hotel in her feet to put down roots and actually get back on her feet. Now, Knox Eden is a super grumpy, tolerates nothing but perfection chef who conveniently has an empty garage apartment and also works in the restaurant of the Eloise. One thing leads to another and Memphis and Drake find themselves moving into Knox's garage apartment, and the three of them have a lot of sleepless nights, though not for the reason you may think. Despite Knox's begrudging personality, he has this little soft spot for both Memphis and Drake, and it's honestly just so sweet, but he does keep it hidden most of the time. His love language is also so obviously acts of service, as he's always making the two of them food and always getting up in the middle of the night to help soothe baby Drake. Juniper Hill is easily my favorite of this series. It's just so wholesome and comforting, and I really recommend it. This one does also have a little bit of a mysterious suspense aspect woven throughout it as well. Okay, this next one, if you've been around on my channel for even just a couple of months, you will know the effect that this book has had on me. This is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. The final 15 pages, bawling my eyes out, cannot see straight, staining the pages with my tears. Honestly, just the ultimate heartstring tugging, cozy as all hell small town romance. So Calla, our heroine, is a busy metropolitan working gal, but when she finds out that her estranged father from Bengal, Alaska has terminal cancer, it basically upends her entire life and future plans, and she makes the trip out to Alaska to try and repair their relationship and spend his final days with him. There's this one quote on the back of the book in the synopsis that I just want to read to you because I feel like it gives the perfect idea about what this book is about. It says, "She braves the roaming wildlife, the odd daylight hours, the exorbitant prices, and even the occasional, dear God, outhouse, all for the chance to connect with her father, a man who, despite his many faults, she can't help but care for." I feel like that just sets the setting so perfectly, but also gives you an idea of just what Calla is willing to go through to actually make and form a relationship with her dad. But of course, this wouldn't be a romance without a hero, and in this case, his name is Jonah. Jonah is a super obnoxious Alaskan pilot who could not imagine living anywhere else. He cannot stand Calla, and the preconceived ideas he's made about her just add fuel to his fire. But with Jonah being the top pilot for her dad's chartering company and the unfortunate situation that they're neighbors, they can't help but form a playful relationship. If there is one recommendation that you take from this video, please let it be this one. I loved this book so much, and I really can't wait to dive into its sequels. Okie dokie, this next book is a bit of a chunker. This is Roadside Here by Mariana Zapata. This one really is a very classic Mariana Zapata slow burn, but it does serve all of the character development and a very deep emotional connection. Similar to both Memphis and Calla, Aurora is fleeing her big city life in favor for a small mountainous country town. Aurora is also on a mission to retrace her deceased mum's footsteps, both metaphorically and physically, as her favorite pastime was hiking. Aurora is desperate for accommodation and takes a last-minute listing, that being Rhodes's garage apartment. However, when Aurora rocks up expecting accommodation, Rhodes is about this close to chasing her off his property. Turns out Rose's 15-year-old son Amos listed their garage apartment to try and make a little bit of extra cash for his music career. Now, after some compromising, Rhodes does let Aurora stay, but only on the conditions that she is never seen, never heard, and pays triple the rate. Obviously, Rhodes eventually comes around and they do form somewhat of a friendship, though it is a friendship. They really do take their sweet old time going from strangers to friends and finally to lovers. But this one is a classic grumpy sunshine, and I really did love Aurora's journey of self-discovery. There's also a one tense scene which it's just so freaking romantic, and it was honestly probably my favorite part of the book. Okie dokie, next up we have a cowboy romance which has been taking the book community by storm recently, and for good reason, honestly. This is Flawless by Elsie Silver, and even more than a cowboy romance, it is a bull rider romance. And not just any bull rider, a fearless ambitious, hotshot, loudmouthing bull rider who has recently found himself in some strife with his sponsors. And so in comes Summer, an agent from his publicity agency, to essentially babysit him for the rest of his bull riding tour. Now, while this book isn't necessarily set in a small town, they do return to Rhett's family ranch for a good portion of the book, and Rhett is very, very much a small town country boy at heart. Flawless really delivers on all of the forced proximity, one bed trope, good girl, bad boy, age gap realness. This book is also where the slightly infamous quote, "Wear the hat, ride the cowboy" comes from, and oh my god, when Rhett said that on page, I think I died a little bit inside. And following suit, because Elsie Silver is the queen of small town romances, next up I have Heartless For You. This book is the second in the Chestnut Spring series, following Flawless, but it can be read as a standalone. And this is also my very favorite small town romance. She has secured the very top spot of small town romances for me. It's just so perfect. No pressure though, I will let you form your own opinions on it, but like, I promise it's good. So Heartless follows Rhett's older brother and single dad, Cade. Cade really is the definition of grumpy with no time for women. He is responsible, level-headed, and completely opposed to the idea of a relationship after the way things ended with his ex-wife. But in comes Willa, who is Summer from the first book's best friend, to upend all of his responsible antics and maybe open his eyes to the idea of a healthy relationship. Willa is also Luke's nanny and moves in with them, so you know there is some impeccable forced proximity in here. The entire book takes place on the Eaton family ranch, and the setting is honestly just perfect. We've got horses, cattle, charismatic but slightly idiotic cowboys, but in the best way. And Harvey, who is Cade and Rhett's father, is also such a crack up. I love him so much. All of the relationships in this book are just executed so perfectly, and I love the fact that Willa actually wins over Cade's son Luke before she wins over Cade, so you know there's some super good pressure from Luke on his dad. So yeah, I would very highly recommend these two if you're down for a cowboy romance set in a small town. Just a little side note, I'm so sorry if you can hear like a buzzing in the background. There's a race going on in my city's CBD and it's so noisy. I think the wind must have just like recently changed because it's gotten so much louder, but I'm so sorry if you can hear that. I really hope it's not too loud on the recording. Okie dokie, and continuing with our Elsie Silver recommendations, this is my final one for her, I promise you. This is Off to the Races. This is Elsie's debut novel, and it seriously does not disappoint. It delivers on all of the horse-stud, farming, racing, forced proximity realness. Now, Vaughn, or Van, I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name, Van has recently inherited his family's racing stud, and with not a Scooby on how to run the place, he enlists the help of horse trainer Billy Black. Billy is feisty, loudmouthed, and sassy, and I absolutely adore her. Vaughn, on the other hand, not so much. They, I swear, butt heads constantly, always bickering and trying to one-up the other. But for the sake of the business, Vaughn has to set aside his qualms and follow Billy to race day. Off to the Races also has an adorable horse in it who I'd honestly classify as a main character. Dee Dee is a piece of work, and as the directors of every horse movie ever, Billy is the only one who can work with him. In all honesty, I really enjoyed this book and I cannot wait to read the rest of them in the series. It honestly made my little horse girl heart so happy, and if it sounds like something you'd enjoy, I'd definitely suggest giving it a go. Okay, I promise we are almost there. Only 3 more books, and the third to last book is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. Archer's Voice is a gut-wrenching but also wholesome and heartwarming small town romance. Bree is new to town, desperate for a fresh start and a quiet community. And Archer, he's the town's outcast. Archer is mute, and apparently this god-awful town has decided that therefore makes him not worth anything. But my god, the minute Bree cracks his skittish exterior, he is the sweetest, kindest, most caring, broken soul. I just love that man with all of my heart. Both characters in this book have a very traumatic past, and they seek healing in each other, and it honestly just makes for probably the most beautiful story I've ever read. If you want to cry, if you want to swoon, if you want to find yourself grinning at a goddamn inanimate object, this book is absolutely for you. And with that being said, I will suggest you check trigger warnings for this one, and probably just check trigger warnings for all of the other books I mentioned as well, just in case. Next up is actually a YA romance. I never saw myself recommending a YA romance because personally smut and romance just go hand in hand for me, but here I am. Now this is The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walter, and despite being closed door, it's really sweet, and I think accurately depicts that first like super warm fuzzy feeling of first love. Meredith, our heroine, has been closed off to the world after the traumatic passing of her sister, but she's determined to re-enter the world this summer, and what better way than at her cousin's week-long wedding celebrations. During the week, her entire family joins in a game of assassin, utilizing the entire island and also employing some pretty dirty tactics. Meredith and our hero Wit form an alliance determined to make it to the final round together, and in the meantime they obviously end up falling for each other. The setting of this book is honestly incredible. It's based off a seaside vineyard just outside of a small town, and K.L. Walter honestly did such an incredible job at painting such an immersive environment. Despite this one having no spice, I would still really recommend it, and there is also heaps of Taylor Swift references. And last but certainly not least, this is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Things We Never Got Over follows runaway bride Naomi, who finds herself stranded in small town Knockamout after coming to the rescue of her estranged and somewhat evil twin. Though Naomi's twin is kind of the whole reason that she's ended up stranded, and also the reason she now has her 11-year-old niece, who she has never met, dumped on her doorstep. And so in comes Knox, somewhat coming to the rescue, but in his own grumpy, disgruntled way. Knox sets the pair up in a house just down the road from his own, gives them rides places, and even employs Naomi at his bar. Despite his initial intention to just help them out and then be on his way, it doesn't quite end up like that, and his general dislike for city girls turns into a not so subtle admiration for one in particular. For me, this book was everything. It delivers on the dislike to love, the close-knit community, the lovable characters, the grumpy sunshine, and all of the forced proximity vibes. It seriously felt like the whole package, and if you haven't read it yet, I'd seriously recommend. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. I really hope you've enjoyed, and I also really hope you found some new recommendations. There will absolutely be a part 2 to this video as I keep exploring small town romances. I've also seriously been eyeing up Catherine Cowser's small town romances recently, so I'm very excited to get into them. Just like immerse myself in the small town romance vibes with an underlying aspect of suspense. Sounds so good. But yeah, if you have enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!